The East Lyme Board of Selectmen regular meeting of April 3rd shall now commence. I'll bring it to order. If you'd all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I wasn't trying to. Can I keep up with you?
Mr. Siri is taking a rare night off for the Board of Selectmen, and Mrs. Hardy as well, as she is in fast recovery from a little spell. So I wish her good health and good wishes from the entire Board of Selectmen and really the whole town. Additional agenda and consent items tonight, are there any?
I'll move to add an agenda item to approve an exchange of land between the town of East Lyme and Lori Zarenda, and to hear the said agenda item first under new business.
Yeah, so that'll be the first item we hit, if I can get a second.
Second.
And great, and if I can get a vote on that. All in favor to add to the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. So that will be the first presentation. I'd also like to, while I'm on that subject, while you're messing up your agendas, could we move D into the north of the A position? So except certain roads, I'm going to put that up right after the Zarenda land swap, and that. Both of those items have Mr. O'Connell, our town attorney, will be making presentations and being available for us to ask questions. And while he's on the clock, we'd like to put him up front. That's good. All right. If no one objects, that's what I'm going to do. Okay. So delegations. Oh, we got another couple of minutes. Thank you. You're quick though. Delegations. Would anyone like to speak? Anybody from the public like to speak tonight? Delegations. No Boy Scouts speaking?
No, sir, we're just here to watch.
All right, here to observe and earn a badge, achievement, certification, citation, something, whatever you do. Well, good for you for being involved, and we appreciate a couple Boy Scout guys coming out tonight. We have approval of the minutes. Special meeting of March 6th.
Move to approve the special budget meeting minutes of March 6, 2019 as submitted.
Second.
Been seconded twice. Any comments or corrections?
It's in harmony.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Great. There was a regular meeting that night, too.
Move to approve regular meeting minutes of March 6, 2019 as submitted.
Second.
Any corrections, comments?
No.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, there is a consent calendar this evening.
Move to approve the consent calendar for the meeting of April 3rd, 2019 in the amount of $33,279,095.
After deliberation, I will second that motion.
I like the spirit of cooperation that we always get from the Board of Selectmen. We have a second. Is there any comment? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Great. Okay, we'll get on with the new business then. So first up is the what we added onto our agenda tonight is a very simple land swap that we're proposing. Gary, you were in the process of handing out maps. Do you want us to just pass them down? Did you drop them off here?
Yes, please.
Okay. And Mr. O'Connell's here, and Mr. Gaishel, our town planner, / wetlands guy, / a couple other things too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, you're here too to explain what we're doing here tonight, a kind of a simple land swap, and there was a little disagreement with plotting and an installation of a septic system at one point, and to make things right, we are suggesting the taking of some land over here and some giving of some land over there, and I've set the stage for you, Mr. O'Connell.
That's right. In this process of repairing her septic system, Ms. Zarenda thought, and everybody thought, that the boundary line was a stone wall separating her property from the town's property. But when the surveyor came out, it turns out the boundary line was a little bit different. And in order for her to get enough land to put her revised and repaired septic system in, she needed a little bit more land. You can see one of the galleries there on your mini maps there. And that land is equivalent to the land which is going to be conveyed to the town of East Lyme. For the record, today the engineer submitted a slightly different Schedule A and Schedule B, which I've talked to the clerk, and we'll put that in because they needed a little tiny bit more land, and we got a commensurate amount of extra land from Ms. Zarenda. That's so it all balances out. You have a resolution, I think, before you regarding that, and you have 3 or 4 whereases, and that would be the resolution to do the land swap and authorize the first selectman to sign the necessary documents.
Are they equal pieces of land?
Yes,
in
equal in
mass
size and
size?
relatively equal in value.
In
so
value,
relatively equal in
right.
value. So no money is going to be exchanged. That's important.
So the north part of the, if it's not north, it's the north part of my map, that borders the Darrow Pond property.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
And this property isn't in that conservation area, so that doesn't even get
No, doesn't
tricky.
get affected at all.
'Cause that might be a little bit trickier if it was on conservation easement. But this is a very simple thing. It's up at the top of the hill, and there was just a small little piece that dipped into the wrong land way back when the house was built. How long ago was this mistake done? How old's the house? How old's the septic?
Gary would know that.
I'm not sure the date on the house, but I believe the septic was installed about 5 years ago.
Okay. All right. So they're trying to make it right. I think there's a land,
Yeah, just for clarification, on the septic install, Ledge Light just approves the repair. Obviously, they didn't require a survey or property boundary survey at that time, and that's Ledge Light saying, okay, do the repair. That's most important. And as a result of a subsequent survey, we discovered that the leaching field extended over the property line. Ledge Light, they want 25 feet from any portion of the septic to the property line, so that's what this plan will do. Gives them actually 27 feet to the edge of that galley, and it's an equal swap of land.
full disclosure, they did the survey and discovered the problem because they're interested in splitting the lot
Correct.
to put another housing lot there
Correct.
for a family member or something.
Public hearing on that is scheduled for next Tuesday.
And we'll go through the full due diligence on that separately,
Correct.
obviously. Any other questions?
There is one
Yes.
procedural thing that the Board of Selectmen should know about. This is because there are no dollars being exchanged, and it's a land swap. The land that is going to be given to the town will not cost anything. But the charter provides, in section 3.3.1.5, the Board of Selectmen shall have the sole power to do various things, and has the power to, with Board of Finance approval, accept gifts of real estate, which is what this is. So nominally, we have to go to the Board of Finance after this action. The reason for that is that, if, say, for example, a piece of land or a piece of property which has great value or value, what somebody wants to give it to the town, the Board of Finance would want to know that because they would perhaps not want to take that property off the grand list. But this is not one of those situations. It's just one of the procedural points we have to observe. And you see down towards the bottom of the resolution, we provide that there is no compensation here, so it's not something that has to go to a town meeting or anything like that. We just have to touch base with the Board of Finance.
So it will be voted on by the Board of Finance?
Yes.
Next week. Thank you. You have a motion?
So I have,
Oh, if you have questions?
I do have a question. I have two motions in here. One that's in here, and one is calling out Schedule A and B.
Yeah.
Is that the one?
Yeah, we're going to give a slightly revised Schedule A and B to the secretary, so that the proper Schedule A and Schedule B will be recorded on the town minutes.
So this is the latest motion?
Yeah.
Okay, and could we just so we know what we're voting on, what's Schedule A and Schedule B?
I think the land that the town will be conveying is Schedule A, and the land that the town will be receiving is Schedule B. depicted as.
Just the opposite.
Okay.
Just the opposite.
Is it just the opposite?
Per the motion.
Okay. We do have it written down, though.
Yeah, it's,
This motion is consistent
Yeah,
with the drawing
with
set,
that.
right?
Motion will be
Because
clear.
it just
Okay.
refers to Schedule A and B, so we can change them at the last minute,
Okay.
which we did.
Terrific.
All right. Make a motion, move, whereas Lori A. Zarenda is the owner of parcel of land with the buildings thereon situated in the town of East Lyme, which abuts the parcel of land owned by the town of East Lyme, and whereas in the process of repairing an existing septic system on Ms. Zarenda's property, it was discovered that a stone wall thought to be in the boundary line between the properties is not the actual property line, and the septic system encroaches onto land owned by the town, and whereas Ms. Zarenda and the town are willing to exchange portions of their respective properties so as to cure the septic system encroachment and to convey a parcel of equal size to the town. And whereas the portion of Ms. Zarenda's land to be conveyed to the town is described in Schedule A, attached hereto, and is also depicted on the map or plan entitled in part Proposed Property Line Adjustment Survey, dated December 18th, 2018, prepared by Gerwick Marine LLC, and whereas the portion of the town's land to be conveyed to Ms. Zarenda is described in Schedule B, attached hereto, and is also depicted on the above-described map, and whereas the above-described land exchange will involve parcels of approximately equal size and value, and will not involve an exchange of money. Now, therefore, the Board of Selectmen hereby approves the above-described exchange of land and authorizes the first selectman to accept the deed from Ms. Zarenda and to execute on behalf of the town a deed and such other documents as may be necessary to complete said transaction.
second.
Motion is second. Any further comments, questions? Kind of cut and dry and very simple, and it's because of all the work you did prior to this meeting. Thank you, Gary, and thank you, Mr. O'Connell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain? Thank you. There's one other item. Stay up there, Ed. By your request, we put you're the top billing here, or at least you're the opening act. And that would be the acceptance of certain roads, the Orchard subdivision. As that development gets built out and they build roads to the proper standards, past the construction stage, once they're all checked out, we accept roads. And we are prepared to take on some more roads.
Yes, in your package on item 2D, there's certain materials that you have. It starts with a resolution, and in back of the resolution, in back of that is a letter from Mr. Benny, the town engineer, advising that this portion of the roadway meets all town standards regarding the construction of roads. And in back of that, you have a fold-out map showing the Orchard subdivision, and the portion which is proposed to be accepted is depicted in yellow, but we did the one in green too, so you get the entire context. And attached to that are some photographs of the road in its present state that we would be accepting. So, and the Planning Commission has indeed approved that, and the town engineer and the utilities director has approved the utilities which are inside the map, or inside the road, on the road. So we just need to adopt this resolution, and the Board of Selectmen is the entity that accepts roads on behalf of the town.
Indeed. Any questions before we put a motion on the table? Okay.
Make a motion, whereas the East Lyme Planning Commission has recommended that the town accept the public highway purposes certain roads and relative improvements located in Phase 3 of the Orchard subdivision, located between the northerly end of Peach Lane and the southerly end of the easterly end of Partridge Court, and more particularly described in deeds pertaining to said roads. And whereas the town engineer and director of planning have determined that the said roads and related improvements have been constructed and installed in accordance with the town's highway standards and the approved subdivision plan. And whereas the town municipal utility engineer has determined that the water and sewer lines located in said roads have been constructed and installed in accordance with the town standards and as-built plans. It is resolved that the Board of Selectmen hereby accept as public highways said roads and related improvements, subject to the developer's execution and delivery of deeds and related documents as approved by town attorney.
Second.
We have a motion on the table. It's second. Any further questions? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstain? Terrific. Ayes have it.
I do have a quick question.
Oh, boy.
Does this have to go through finance too? Because it's not
No.
it's not a gifting of a land, right? It's just
No,
an-
no,
Yeah.
it's not. This is really the subdivision plan that's approved by the planning commission, and they approve it as it goes along. So
Okay.
it's under the planning and zoning regulations, rather than a gift of land. This is not a,
Got it.
yeah.
Thank you. Did we vote?
Yep, we did. You did.
We gotta vote. Yeah, you can. Dairy Queen's open, Ed. Just saying. We'll go back to 2B, discussion and possible action of the fire marshal's fee schedule. What am I, oh, we're gonna go to A.
So-
Sorry, presentation of the annual medical transportation grant. Is that why you're here? Yes. Kathy Wilson is our, our senior center director, Commission on Aging, and as you know, we do, it's mostly a transportation department. It also does some bingo on the side. No, you do a ton of things, but there's a lot going on with transportation, especially in your department. Why don't you bring us up to speed?
So, we write a grant every year, which we call our Dollar Ride Grant, and its specific purpose is to provide transportation for medical appointments that the senior center can't fulfill. And that's typically appointments outside of town. We started writing this grant in 2006 and have written one every year since. When we first started, it was East Lyme, Waterford, and Groton, our three towns, and we brokered with Eastern Connecticut Transportation Consortium, or ECTC, to sort of administer the rides. And this particular grant has money apportioned to each town within the state of Connecticut based on acreage and population. So and I have the figures here, but just for ease of my addition in my head, just say East Lyme got $5,000, Waterford got $5,000, but Groton got 10. So we pooled our $20,000 for our three communities to be able to provide transportation. It's been flat funded since 2006, but the way that we've been able to grow the program is we have asked our surrounding communities if they wanted to join us. So we currently have 12 towns that participate in this. So we have about $300,000, give or take a little bit, that we can use for transportation for medical appointments, and it runs from July 1 to June 30th. The grant is broken up into two portions. It's the actual provision of the ride, a livery, a cab or a livery vehicle, and/or a wheelchair accessible vehicle. So that's the actual provision of the ride. Or we will do mileage reimbursement for a caregiver, a family friend, a family member. If they can provide the ride, we can reimburse them the mileage from the client's house to the medical appointment back. So this has been cooking along fine for years. We've been able to increase it by adding other towns. We pretty much have southeastern Connecticut in our group. Montville and Norwich do their own thing, but up to Bosra, down to East Lyme, over to North Stonington. So we have all these communities in. So we're pretty much maxed out in terms of any more money that we can get. This year, unfortunately, we ran out of grant money in February, which we had run out of funds one time previous, but it was like May. So this was a bad year, and the reason was just the usage has just exploded. When we first did this back in 2006 with the three towns, we provided 2,814 rides. Last year, we provided 9,042 rides, and that's with 12 towns. So the reason why I'm here is because I know there was a lot of blowback about this, and people wanting to know, how this was, what went wrong, and what went wrong is just the usage just increased tremendously. So I am currently writing the new grant, and so some of the things that we're looking at doing is significantly reducing the number of rides that we're going to be able to provide. Right now, we've told, the current year that we're in, we told people they could have up to 24 one-way trips or 12 round trips. And now we're really looking at reducing that to six round-trip rides. We've gone back and forth about, how to limit this, change this, adopt this, but it's so successful and it's such a good service to have that it's hard for us to limit it more than what we're going to limit it now. And there's a couple of, there's not only the increase in population that's driving this, but there's also the change in the medical delivery system. In 2006, most of my medical was in New London because all the doctors were clustered around L&M. Well, that's not happening anymore. L&M was absorbed by Yale. Bacchus was absorbed by Hartford Health. They have community centers sort of all around. Doctors aren't right next to the hospital anymore, so they're all over the place. And John Rood, who's the director of ECTC, Eastern Connecticut Transportation Consortium, says every day it's like a shotgun. There's that many rides in that many directions, and it's very difficult to try to say, all right, we're only going to do this part of the community, on one day, and this part on another. So it's been difficult. I don't know that there's going to be any really good solution other than we're going to be reducing the rides. And the other thing we're really trying to encourage people is caregiver mileage reimbursement is way less expensive than providing the actual ride. So if we could encourage people to get people to drive them. But many times what I hear is I have a 98-year-old gentleman trying to get somewhere. He either doesn't have children, has outlived his children, has outlived his friends, his children live someplace else, so they don't have a volunteer or a friend or what have you to provide the ride so they can give mileage reimbursement. You're also dealing with frailer folks. Sometimes people are very uncomfortable about putting them in their car, and anytime you have a wheelchair, that you definitely need the wheelchair lift. So just wanted to update you about what's happening with it and what happened this year, and it was just the usage exploded. We were on track to do about 12,000 rides this year if we were continuing the way we were going to go, and they just didn't have enough money to do that. So
Is it a needs-based program?
no.
Should it be? I mean, is that 98-year-old man, and no offense, right? So, because you use a random example, so I guess I can use them. Is that 98-year-old man, he might be sitting on some,
I
some
don't know that we
average retirement funds that he could pay $20 for that ride, and would gladly pay it, so he doesn't have to drive to Norwich. Or even $15 toward the ride and subsidize it. I mean, I don't know how you do it either. I don't know if they provide.
I don't think we can, Mark. I think because the
Okay.
funds are coming through DOT, I don't think we can charge. I think they have to be provided.
No matter who wants them.
Right. I mean, you can have some restrictions, like the restrictions are their medical appointments. So we're not going to bring you to Walmart. We're going to bring you to your doctors. But I don't believe that there's and let me back up a little. We did have an enrollment fee. A few years ago, we did put in an enrollment fee of $24. We thought that was fairly reasonable, $24, $2 a month. And we did that for two reasons. Mostly we did it because when we did not have that enrollment fee, there was a larger pool of people that were trying to access this transportation who had an ability to have medical transportation paid for through the Medicaid program, through either Logisticare, which was a provider a few years ago, or VO now. But those programs weren't as responsive, so people liked our Dial-A-Ride program better. So once we instituted that $24 enrollment fee, a lot of those folks that had the medical transportation for free through Medicaid didn't pay the $24. And then the other piece was any money that we get in from the program, either through enrollment fees or donations, it gets matched. It's not anywhere near enough money to do anything, so.
Interesting. So 100% of that, of your funding comes from the state.
Correct.
It's not town money. This isn't
No.
town, taxpayer supported
No.
locally. It is obviously taxpayer supported because anything coming from the state
Right, right.
is taxpayer supported. Interesting. Interesting dilemma. Our office has received calls, and I'm glad you're updating this. You might be bumping into people in the community that were relying on this transportation, and all of a sudden it went away.
Right.
What's the percentage of livery, transportation, and relatives or neighbors reimbursement trips roughly?
So roughly 65% of the trips are livery, 15% are wheelchair, and then whatever the remaining is caregiver mileage.
65, so that's 70%, 80%. 65 and 15?
Yeah, so 20% reimbursement.
It's just, I don't know. If a neighbor or a relative needed a ride to the doctor's, I wouldn't be chasing to get reimbursed the mileage for it personally.
Right.
Whereas someone who doesn't have a vehicle, doesn't have someone to drive them, needs a special wheelchair, would be have a higher need by someone taking them to the doctors, Now, if someone goes to the doctors 3 times a month, then, that can become costly with gas prices.
And
I
we
guess,
talked
but-
about just providing wheelchair lift transportation, but there are quite a few people that
Just
don't
have-
drive, can't drive, shouldn't drive, or won't drive. So, I mean, so that felt like that was hurting a portion of the population that really can't afford to.
If someone
to be
doesn't
hurt.
have a means of transportation, we certainly, that's get them there, whether it's specialized transportation for a wheelchair or they don't have another means. But someone who has someone drive them and get reimbursed for mileage, I don't know. To me, that's not as high as a need as the ones who have no means to get there at all.
But it's much less expensive. It's much less expensive, and those dollars go a lot further.
What is the reimbursement rate for those that?
It's the IRS 54%.
The same
Yeah,
as-
yeah.
54
Same
cents a
rate.
mile.
Yeah.
58
54
cents,
cents a
we
mile,
do.
I think it is,
Yeah.
or 55, whatever it is, yeah.
So allowing that leaves more money for the specialized transportation out of the money you get each year. You're saving money on each trip for mileage reimbursement,
Right.
which leaves some money, more money for the livery or wheelchair. Okay.
Do you have any statistics on what the average distance is on the run?
I really do. So, and it really surprised me. There's a couple of things. One, the average age of the rider is about 75. 2, the average, and if this is average, the average ride that the livery provided was an 8-mile drive, which I was stunned by that. But then I started thinking about it, because New London is, how far away? And if your way to get to L&M is 95, you may dial a ride, because as a person, you may feel comfortable driving in town, but you're not going to get onto 95 to go to a medical appointment. But it's